Jesus.
Are you tired of the same old sports media? Are you tired of hot takes, arguments, and questions that are just completely off base?
Luckily, we have something for you. Touchdowns and tangents. Of the people, for the people, by people, who care about the culture and all its concise commentary.
What's up, good people? Live from Los Angeles, California. It's your Thursday
Son of a
night
bitch!
spot
I fucking knew it! Son of a bitch!
for NFL takes, topical tangents, concise commentary for the culture, and live fantasy reaction.
How did I know they were gonna fucking throw it to Hayden Hurst? Didn't I tell
told you I should have kept him in.
I
told you I should have kept him
God damn it! Why? Mixon was open in the flat.
Anyways,
Why? Why, God? Why?
anyways, I'm PD Camarillo, and he is.
I'm pissed off. I'm Kenneth Berry.
Yeah, so Kenny's fantasy week isn't getting off to a good start after the Bengals just scored.
I mean, it is, but it's not.
Essentially, the game-sealing touchdown, 26-15.
27-15. Them kickers were doinking field. Miami's
27-15.
trash.
Bengals now have a chance to move to 2-2.
Two more
Dolphins
wins.
dropped to 3-1.
2 more wins than the Raiders.
Prayers up to Tua. Left the game on a stretcher.
I knew that. I knew that action was coming too, because the Dolphins don't follow the motion whatsoever. That shit was there all game. They set that up all game. That was perfect. Perfect play calling, but I mean, I have Hayden Hurst. He was on my bench.
Yeah, apparently I have Hayden Hurst on the bench as well now.
I traded Kittle because I had Hayden Hurst and Dawson Knox, and I got Miles Sanders and Bateman back. So, how about those 6'6" offensive linemen for the Bengals?
Yeah, man. I guess they had a bounce back game today. But I was just saying,
Mixon was like, I wanted that touchdown, but okay.
before the game, like the Bengals essentially added a lot of size and weight to their line to make it better.
Technique.
But it kind of just threw off the timing with the run game, I think, with Mixon, especially. But he had a much better game today.
It looks like they're running more power.
Exactly, yeah.
Like, they're just bulldozing guys, but they're not really giving him clean running lanes at all.
Well, yeah, so I think they needed this game, get their confidence back up. And, again, prayers to Tua. He also went out last week. A lot of people said they thought he had a concussion. His head hit the turf.
Even
bounced
harder.
off. But, yeah, the Dolphins came out right away and was like, oh, he was in concussion protocol. He was fine.
Back.
It was his back.
Which is some bullshit.
But either way, Dan Patrick brought it up on the radio. He's like, yeah, but, like, even if that's the case, like, shouldn't we still be worried? Like, shouldn't that be worse? Like, the fact that his back injury is so bad that his head
he got up
like that?
He got up and his whole body started wobbling.
Yeah.
And he was holding his head, which means he was fucked up all the way around.
Yeah, so that's what Patrick was saying was like, if anything, that almost makes it worse.
Because
it's
Tyreek
like,
Hill's eating right now in fantasy.
he's really just a hit away from something like that happening again. Yeah, tonight, unfortunately, left the game on a stretcher.
That boy got 159 yards receiving.
So, we'll see what happens with Tua, but it's a good opportunity for Teddy Bridgewater, at least, in his hometown. Make something happen when no one else expects it.
I'm okay with the Jalen Waddle last-second touchdown here.
Just to pad the stats.
Pad my fantasy stats.
Fuck up the spread. I don't know what the spread was for this game.
Nah, what fucked up the spread was that Browns-Steelers game. That had everybody mad. That last-second defensive touchdown. Everybody was pissed.
All right, so moving on, Kenny. What do we got to talk about this week?
Let's talk about it.
I mean, we could get into this fantasy more. or we could just jump straight to, recap of last week's games. The Raiders are the only winless team in the league.
That's wild. And the teams that beat them haven't beaten anyone else.
Damn, I have to pee. It sucks.
So that doesn't even make it much better.
Yeah. Nobody's playing. Damn, Sam Hubbard just bulldozed that right tackle on his ass. That's almost what I did.
I need you to focus, bro. I need you to focus on the podcast right now.
I'm commentating the game, too.
This is not a game commentary podcast. This is a podcast about culture, not about a game that's going to be
culturally speaking,
old and
Sam
as
Hubbard
soon as this show
just
published.
planted a Greg Little on his ass. And Greg Little was a part of that 5-star recruiting class for Ole Miss. Look at this. Booyaka shot. He caught that shit in the chest. Man down.
Yeah, that's an actual good bull rush, but because he set it up.
It's a power, though. He thought it was a power rush.
Yeah, because he set it up. That's why Greg Little was kicking so hard, because he's been getting his ass kicked with speed. And so then he just caught him with leverage.
Sam
and
Hubbard
power.
not even a speed rusher like that.
I know. That's how bad.
He might have ran the
Little
same
is.
40 time.
Probably did.
That's crazy.
But Hubbard be all around the field. That's why I like him, because he always gets to the ball.
Speaking of which, Taylor Lewan, he told Sam Hubbard to stop bowing up at him. He said, "You ain't got the fucking lats to be coming at me like that, bro." And well, Taylor Lewan, torn ACL, out for the year. Who knows if his career in Tennessee is over? Because he's in year 9, going on year 10.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and somehow the Raiders, Chandler Jones still couldn't figure out how to get a sack, even though he had 5 sacks against them last year.
Against Taylor Lewan.
Nothing this year.
Nada.
But yeah, I think the biggest thing with the Raiders is
nada. No.
I told Kenny
no
this
consistency.
off air, but it's just it's not even that they they find ways to let the other team back into it, but it's more of just they don't have that will to not lose. It's not even the fact that they're not winning. It's it just seems like they're okay with that. And I think that's really what bothers me the most about this team compared to other teams. Because I'll be straight up, this is not the worst Raiders team that I've ever seen, talent-wise. But it is probably the most disappointing because they just really lack that, cohesiveness and, that heart. Because even before, when we were sorry, it was we always had little bright spots, little players that would step up and make plays. And we still have some of that, but it's the same guys doing the same things and then other guys making the same kind of mistakes. And it's all that is not a recipe for success, because guess what? We barely squeaked into the playoffs last year, and the rest of the league got better. And just looking at the rest of kind of the West Coast scene, you got the 49ers. Garoppolo looked he was mixed, more bad than good, but not horrible. People think he'll bounce back this week versus the Rams. And the Rams, while they're 2-1, they haven't looked amazing yet. They're still bringing everything together. And then, of course, you have the Chargers, who were looking like a early Super Bowl contender, and then, they did what Chargers always do, dealt with injuries. Justin Herbert with the rib injury didn't look great last week. Rashawn Slater's out for the year with Achilles or ACL? Pec or something?
Wait, what's his last name?
Slater.
Oh, yeah, he exploded his pec.
Yeah, and he missed
His bicep.
half of last year. Even though he's looked good, I mean, he's now looking habitually injury prone. Keenan Allen's been in and out. They've had some. J.C. Jackson hasn't recovered like they thought he would.
Not ankle surgery.
Joey Bosa's having issues now, I
He
think.
just got put on IR with that groin injury.
Yep. So he's going to be missing 3 weeks.
At least.
And then you got Seattle, which isn't great, but not as bad as we might have thought. Geno Smith. Yo, I forgot what announcer it was, but he called out Drew Lock, and he was like, look at Drew Lock right
Clark.
here. He's like, look at Drew Lock right here. He's doing exactly what he needs to be doing.
This is the best position he needs to be in.
That was gold, bro.
Yeah, Ryan Clark was fouled for that.
That was gold. Especially because he wasn't even that good, bro. Like, is he better than Von Bell?
I think, yeah, he was a Pro Bowler his last year in the league.
Wasn't Von Bell a Pro Bowler 1 year?
I think Von Bell's better than Ryan Clark.
That's what I just said.
I'm not going to keep slandering the dude who doesn't have a spleen. If he doesn't have a spleen and he doesn't have, like, one of his kidneys, you have to have a bunch of shit taken out of him.
Von Bell?
Nah.
Ryan Clark?
Yeah, because you have.
You slandered Ryan Clark plenty of times.
He has sickle cell, so he had high altitude. He had to have, like, a bunch of his organs taken out. And Channing Crowder was roasting his ass for it.
Wow. That's kind of foul.
It was kind of funny.
But yeah, overall, since we're now 3.whatever% through the league, yeah, I fucked up that math. We're like 3 out of 17 ways. 3 out of 17 on our way to the finish. On the way to the finish, what other surprises have you taken from the season so far? Any?
Shit, I just caught a cramp. All right. How should I say this? Lamar Jackson being the best passing quarterback in the league.
I mean, I don't think that's
and
really
people
a surprise.
still denying it.
He's one of the
people still denying it.
I don't know how you deny it when this man won MVP unanimously.
People are still denying it.
No one's ever rushed to the caliber that he has, and he's putting up respectable passing numbers.
He's like has a QBR of 99 when being blitzed. The other thing higher than 99 is 100, which is perfect. And people still saying, "Oh, he's a running quarterback," but Ed Reed told him, "This is how they really think of you. They don't really want to pay you what you're worth, or else they would have done it."
Well, yeah, I think other surprises. The Eagles have really looked like a contender. I think they're the only undefeated. They're the only remaining undefeated team now that Miami's lost.
Eagles ain't looked this good since they went to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think they actually have like more depth across the board.
For sure.
And then I think another thing that was kind of surprising was that 14-12 Packers Buccaneers shit show. And then the Cowboys have surprisingly looked decent. Like, they're still not rolling. I still don't know what their offensive coordinator is doing. Like, he just finds a way to, like, undercut himself by not going to the hot hand. But they're finding ways to win games with Cooper Rush, and I think that might buy Mike McCarthy another year alone. And as Richard Sherman said, I don't think Dak is really at any threat of losing his job because he's just making too much damn money.
Part of it.
And then, before we wrap up this segment, I guess the last thing we should talk about is Kenny beat me in fantasy last week, everybody.
Decisively.
He beat me by 12 points, and I had like 70 points on the bench.
You want to go on a deep dive? Because I really got to pee.
Not really. I think you should be a professional and pee before we go on the air instead of sitting here commentating the game.
I still can't hold it.
Well, if you got to go pee, what do you want to do? What am I going to do?
You should just like go on the deep detail how you left 70 points on your bench and what was your mind frame in doing that.
All right, well, hurry up.
Break down every single one. Started with Jamal Williams.
Anyway, so last week what had happened was I was planning to put Jamal Williams in. I was going back and forth on it. I was thinking about taking out Josh Jacobs or Zeke. I had Amari Cooper on the bench, which, again, I kind of went back and forth on, but he played on a Thursday night. So I ended up going with somebody else on my flex. And then the other thing I was going back and forth on was Justin Herbert, and my backup is Aaron Rodgers. And Rodgers had like his first decent fantasy game of the season. Meanwhile, Herbert battled through injuries. I actually swapped them out literally at the last minute. I swapped Rodgers out for Herbert again once I found out Herbert was going to play. Ultimately, cost me overcoaching, overthinking. I think I went on the side of caution because I didn't want to necessarily gamble too high and make a mistake versus Kenny. So pretty much didn't take the chances that I should have taken. Now, that resulted in 70 points on the bench, as Kenny mentioned, and a
Abject
nice win
failure.
But yeah, moving forward, this week I made a couple of changes. Got a rematch against my friend Jacob, who beat me earlier in the season. Now, I also, in the other league that we play in, a smaller league, it's an 8-man league, I got a rematch versus Kenny, and those teams are a little bit more stacked, but also
Clappage is still going to be the same
also
result.
it's not as much money, but still, I'll take a win over Kenny any day of the week. So
Because you desperately need one.
looking forward to going 500. And yeah, that's about it for the Touchdowns and Tangents fantasy update.
How you going to go 500 and I got one up on you? You got to beat me twice in fantasy to go up.
I'll be 500, 1-1.
Aren't we in 2 leagues and I'm about to beat you twice?
It's a different league, yeah. If you beat me, you're not going to beat me, though. I'm already slated to outscore you by like 20 points.
You were outslated to score me. Bro, you were outslated to score me.
Okay.
Last time.
Again,
You did?
as you talked about in your other league, you weren't expecting Justin Jefferson to have 4 points, and I had Joe Mixon
And
have 2
Jamar Chase
points.
had more than 4 points, though.
Yeah.
He helped that.
week.
He helped at that catch at the end.
Yeah, that week.
If you didn't get tripped,
What did he do this week? 10 points?
He had 4 catches for 81 yards.
So what, 12 points? 13?
Same as the last week.
Yeah.
But he had a touchdown last week with way fewer yards.
Quiet 13.
I mean, hey. As long as you score 10 a game.
As long as you score more than you're supposed to, than the algorithm thinks you're going to score, I'm cool with that.
Nah, if you give me 10 points, if you give me 12 points, I'm okay with that. If I get at least 12 points from everybody, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, basically.
Tight ends was a problem, but Hayden Hurst scored that touchdown and got 11.7, so I'm kind of pissed about it because he was on my bench. So now I got to hope Kittle does what he does, and then it's like 3.
Me and Hawkinson.
It's like 3 pending trades. One of them I was going to veto in another league, but honestly, everybody in the trade sucks. So I'm going to just let it ride. Like, y'all just trading trash for trash.
All right. Well, before we move on to college football, shout out to Miss Mocha, X Squad in the chat.
Salute.
Hope everything is well.
It's only 8:30. That's crazy, bro.
It's football, Kenny.
Alrighty then. College football. So USC narrowly escaped an upset from 3-0 and somehow still unranked Oregon State. 17-14. Offense played like shit the whole game. Defense had 4 turnovers, 4 interceptions to be exact. And like pretty much held it down in the run game. They had a couple of broken runs, but Oregon State always has good running backs. Like always. Like when I talked to Jonathan Smith at Media Day, which I could pull that audio up, but the tweets are out there. Follow me on Twitter, Ozo Grande. It's in my pinned tweet thread. You can go find it. Pac-12 Media Day coverage. You know, might drop some other stuff on TikTok and other places as the season goes on that keep proving my point about what I said about the Pac-12 and certain teams. Arizona State playing USC this week, and it's going to be a bloodletting. It's going to be a beat down. Like, they're going to get beat so bad, like, they might have to put up a Brazzer sticker on this game. Arizona State is going to get fucked. Like, they're already a party school, and they're already freaky out there, and they're not using condoms as is. Arizona's already a wild party school state. So imagine that times whatever USC's going to beat them by. And shout out to all the former Arizona State players who are balling at other schools once they left there, like Johnny Wilson, who's 6'7", a receiver, formerly of Calabasas High School. He still wears number 14. That's a problem for me. He's 6'7", wearing number 14 as a receiver.
Other big,
he's killing it for Florida State. He had another 100-yard game. They're undefeated, and I think they play. I want to say they play at Doak Walker. Don't they play Florida this week?
Who? Florida State?
I think Florida State plays Florida.
No, they play Wake Forest.
Oh, Florida. By the way, Wake Forest.
Which Wake Forest almost beat Clemson last week.
Sam Hartman came back from his personal issue or injury, whatever he was dealing with, threw 6 touchdown passes, went like 20 or 28, threw 6 touchdown passes. And Clemson beat them like 49-42, I think, in like double overtime. And I think Clemson rushed the field. And Clemson was like the 4th-ranked team in the country. Now they're 5th because Michigan is now ranked 4th. I'm just saying USC would clap Clemson.
And then you also got
Texas bum-ass finally lost. They lost to Texas Tech in Lubbock. It's the first win against Texas since like the Michael Crabtree game.
And A&M
37-35 to 32, something like that.
A&M narrowly edged out Arkansas.
Who was ranked 10th?
Arkansas has another big game this week versus somebody ranked, Alabama.
Woo Pig Suey.
Gonna get clapped.
They're definitely gonna get clapped. They're not winning that. Especially after they did Vanderbilt.
NC State, Clemson, 10-5.
That's an upset game.
You taking NC State?
I mean, I took Kansas State versus Oklahoma. Like I said, they beat them like 3 out of the last 4 years.
Yep.
And they beat them 41-34. Casey Thompson, former Nebraska transfer, went off, had like 250 yards passing, almost 150 yards rushing, like 4 TDs.
This week you also got Oklahoma State versus Baylor.
That's going to decide the Big 12.
9-10.
That's going to decide the Big 12.
You're not putting... Oh, wait, never mind.
Texas isn't ranked since they lost to Texas.
I was going to say Oklahoma.
Oklahoma lost to Kansas State.
They're still ranked.
They lost to Kansas State.
So you're taking them out.
They're done. Even though all the teams in the Big 12 are above 500, they're done. No national championship game for you.
Kentucky, Mississippi.
Kentucky could lose that if they ain't careful. Mike Leach.
And tomorrow night, 15th, Washington versus UCLA out at the Rose Bowl.
That'll be interesting because fans ain't showed up at all for UCLA. And if they don't get up for this game and Washington pounded out Michigan State, Washington could also pound out UCLA. That's a real big threat to what USC wants to do.
Washington?
Yes, because they run pretty much the same spread offense. Similar concepts.
Do they play this year?
I think they do play this year. I want to say they do.
The last one, Stanford, Oregon.
Oh, man, Oregon came back against Washington State. Should have lost that game. Came back and won it. I think you want to go into Stanford right now and try to run a yard. They might do it because they have better athletes than Bo Nix is inconsistent. But Stanford ain't just going to let you blow them out. Now,
Yeah, so it doesn't look like Washington and USC play this year.
Washington State plays them in 2 weeks. So that should be interesting. But this will probably be the easiest game on USC schedule is Arizona State.
Especially after
They still got to
their
be
coaching change.
They still got to be careful because Emory Jones, the Florida transfer, he's still pretty good. Got a big arm. He's mobile. The story of the year are the Kansas Jayhawks, led by former Lawndale High School and state championship winning quarterback Jalen Daniels. They already have a Jalen for Heisman campaign going. The last time they were 4-0 was like when they had Todd Reesing at QB, and this was 2009. And he was setting a bunch of offensive records. Shout out to Lance Leopold, who's probably going to get a bunch of coaching job offers in the offseason. But he's doing a great job with Kansas rebuilding them back up. And hopefully Jalen stays another year, get polished. Because as we saw this year, you don't want to just rush out and believe all the hype and think you're going to go first round as a QB when nobody really believed he was a first round QB. Some of them cats didn't even get drafted, and they were told they were going to be the number one overall pick. How do you go from being a projected number one overall pick to no one drafting you and no one hearing from you again because you just gave up football? How's that happen?
Be like that sometimes, like this.
Yeah, man. It's going to be real interesting. But I think Kansas is about to be ranked. My thing is, they just got to run the gauntlet in the Big 12. Because they have the talent. They're well coached. What'll interest me, I think, is either Michigan plays Iowa or Ohio State plays Iowa. Somebody plays Iowa, and that's always an upset game. Somebody always folds up there. I forget who. But he's going to probably keep winning. Damn it. Georgia's blowing everybody out again. It makes no sense. But they just keep retooling with 5 stars all over the defensive and offensive lines and skill positions. So, does anything Georgia do now surprise you?
Not really. All right, so should we move on to take your tangent?
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Well, I'm trying to do like 7 different things, so that's why. Including... All right, so first up, this one's from you, but Future sold his 612 song catalog for around $75 million. Take or tangent?
Man, that's bold, but Future can just do it again. He's just messing with once you know how to mess with the algorithm, you make as many songs as you want and package it for something. And I guess he wanted to recoup. So he said, hey, take all my old stuff. Just give me $75 million. The real interesting part will be how he flips that $75 million.
That's true. That was a good point. I like that. But yeah, man, I think the reason why Future is one of the most legendary people of this rap generation, hip-hop generation, is because he's always working. Like, rappers work, and I was talking to my good friend who's a reporter out in Miami, and he was just like, think about it. Like, he's literally like the Dungeon family, but like for this generation. And like, he really learned a lot from those dudes. And I think what he learned mostly was, work. Keep working to stay relevant. You're only as relevant as much as you work. And I think the other reason why is he's really been open to the young generation. Like, he did the collaboration with Judas WRLD, Young Thug, Drake, and even Atlanta and Gunna, a lot of different folks. Like, Future has either a hook or a verse with, and I think that just kind of speaks to him like being an OG, but like also being able, like still being approachable and relatable, like not just being a recluse sitting on top of his mountain, unplugged away from the game like some other icons in hip hop. But yeah, anything else you want to add there, Kenny?
Get your money.
Get your money. Yeah. All right, next one. Trevor Noah to leave The Daily Show after 7 years. Take or tangent. Who put it on here?
I know. I just don't care about The Daily Show. Trevor Noah can do what he wants, but it's just whatever. I don't care. I'm glad it's over.
Yeah, honestly, I haven't really
school.
watched The Daily Show since Jon Stewart. I'm sure Trevor Noah will probably get a Netflix deal or some shit.
He already has Netflix deals.
Exactly.
No specials. Well,
all right, and Reggie Bush wants his Heisman back. Take or tangent?
here's my issue. You should have just lied and said you didn't have it. That's what I would have done. I ain't got it.
I mean, it was a different time then. So, I don't get him for being like, fuck y'all. I don't want this dumbass trophy anyways.
The Heisman Trust is down to give it back to him. The NCAA won't reinstate him. That's the only hurdle.
The NCAA really just being some assholes. Assholes adjacent?
Full-blown sickly assholes.
Now we move on to touchdown and turnover. Good?
Yeah, Mike's fucked up. Stand. You know the one that like goes up and down like this? Look.
Yeah, but that you got to just tighten that part. All right, touchdown or turnover. Tua going back on the field, going through concussion protocol, and now knowing what we know now, touchdown or turnover. Should Tua have even been out there?
Oh, shit, it was a turnover. Once I saw last week, that man, he tried to hold us back, but he kept holding his head and then bobbing and weaving and damn near was out on his feet. Like, bro should have never got through concussion protocol. All it took was him to hit his head one time and he up there throwing up gang signs to everybody.
All right, yeah, I definitely agree with that. There's nothing really I want to add there. This one kind of got buried in your rundown somewhere, but Myles Garrett was involved in a car accident this past weekend, sustained a couple of minor injuries, bruises to his bicep, etc.
Got cited, too.
Expected to be okay. Admitted to speeding, going 20 miles over the speed limit. I joke that I hope the car's okay, but
That car was
was
totaled.
not okay.
That car was totaled. I don't know how he got pulled out of it.
Well, look at him.
That's what I'm saying.
He's a beast. But yeah, so touchdown or turnover, Garrett admitting to speeding.
I mean, it's touchdown. Could have been way worse. Could have got yourself killed. Everybody was
Facts.
sad. Like, it was easily preventable. So, at least he's learned from his mistakes. That's all he can really ask for.
All right. Now moving on. Oh, okay, here we go. Jamal Williams to be inducted in the Chargers Hall of Fame. Touchdown or turnover.
It was interesting for the sheer fact that it's been a long time. Kind of wondering why it took so long. She should have been in.
Yeah.
He was the heart and soul of their defense.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. And then last one, the Pro Bowl, as we know it, is no longer a thing.
Oh, yeah, that's what I forgot.
The NFL has officially elected to do away with the actual All-Star game, and instead they're just going to have a week of activities. Some of them they already do. They're looking at adding other ones. So, touchdown or turnover, the NFL getting rid of the Pro Bowl.
Touchdown, it was about time. People not just going to willingly take headshots all year round just because you got a mental deficiency and you want to go tackle people. Because there's plenty of people when they go outside, they're just like, you know what? Kind of trying not to get murked. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think
not trying to have a Sean Taylor, Brian Moorman situation again.
I think the crazy thing for me is the fact is this is something we talk about in all sports right now, right? Like the MLB talks about it, the NBA talks about it. So I think to me it's just a bigger kind of cultural issue.
Shout out to Aaron Judge.
I don't think players really care about All-Star games anymore because they're a lot of risk and it's not really worth the reward. So I don't know if there's a way to incentivize it more, make it more competitive, add more money. But I think clearly the NFL just got to the breaking point where it's just a bad product and we're better off doing something else. So, I mean, I don't mind, trying something new. I just think back to the Pro Bowl when I was a kid. Honestly, I haven't watched the Pro Bowl in a solid 7 years. But I do remember as a kid, I really loved voting, especially when the Raiders were trash and we'd only get maybe one player other than Shane Leckler. But then even some of the games, I would watch, and I really just enjoyed seeing all my favorite players get together. And I think the NFL is trying to do that more with some of these other things.
Just without the violence.
Yeah, I saw someone tweet out, they should do camp games. I think that would be cool, a capture the flag, tug of rope. I think they do tug of war already. But, sumo, I think even if these dudes would go head up and do Oklahomas or one-on-ones, I think that would be cool. But then again, there's a lot of injury risk there, too. So
imagine linemen versus linemen in wide receiver competitions. We finally settle fat guy scores.
Yeah, that might actually be cool. Just have all the receivers and quarterbacks play linebackers, and have all the big men play skill positions.
Honestly, kind of want to see. Yeah, I kind of want to see a receiver get a 3-point stance or try to down block. Have a greater appreciation for what you got going.
I think maybe if the contracts were all guaranteed, maybe that helps a little bit. I don't know.
I mean, they're advertising 24/7, so I doubt that's the issue. It's more just comes down to what people want. If they won't even pursue it.
Yeah, basically. All right, so moving on to a new segment that we're going to introduce. It's called Fair or Fade. So, Kenny, I'm going to give you a scenario, and you're going to tell me, was that fair or is it fade? Right. And speaking of which, I just sent you the Google Meet on Instagram.
How do you always send me Google Meets on Instagram?
Because I can't text you on my computer.
Fair point.
But yeah, so the first one you got here is Ken Dorsey had a major meltdown this past weekend. Was that fair or is it fade?
Clearly, Ken Dorsey wanted to fade with his entire offense for blowing it the way they did. Kind of sad that they lost that way to the Dolphins, who only would end up scoring 15 today?
Yeah, my boss went to U of M, and he's a Bills fan, so I'm sure he loves that Ken Dorsey is the offensive coordinator.
Jumping through tables and shit.
Speaking of which, that reel with the strip club at the tailgate was kind of lit. I'm not gonna lie.
So lit, I don't remember all of it.
All right, next one. Shady McCoy called out Eric Bieniemy on Twitter, basically saying like that's all he does is yell and belittle and degrade his players. And then Bieniemy essentially came back on a statement or whatever with a reporter this week and was like, "So what? Like, I don't really care what people think." So, fair or fade? LaShawn McCoy calling out Bieniemy and also Bieniemy not giving a fuck.
That's a long time fade, bro. Shady McCoy got to fade a lot of people. Like a lot of people.
Well, according to him, he's one of the greatest players of the generation.
I mean, yeah, and he even said he mimicked the style off Reggie Bush. So, I mean, what does that tell you? That means the guy mimicked his style off a dude who would have been one of arguably the best running back in the NFL if he was in the league today, starting over from like this era. Because rookie Reggie Bush was nothing to play with.
All right, and then the last one that you brought up earlier in the league was Quentin Williams blew up as well. Jets defensive lineman. Was it fair or was it fade?
That's not just a fade. That boy looked like he wanted to eat his children. That man looked like he was ready to lose it all. Like that meme where you finally snap on your boss. You don't care about the consequences.
Did he snapped on the coaches or his teammates?
His coach said something. He snapped on his D-line coach. He snapped on that man. Several hulking grown men had to get involved. Like, yo, chill, bro. Chill. Please chill.
All right, and then one more that I saw kind of randomly this week. Basically, a former Broncos player who now covers the team. I forgot what his name was, but he only played in Denver for like 2 years, 3 years, and those happened to be part of the Josh McDaniels era in Denver. Pretty much, he went on this whole Twitter thread about like how McDaniels had all these sayings on the walls and he quizzed players. He had like this 10-minute
Chances how to Columbus.
every day he had like a 10-minute low light of the practice before, and he just talked shit and belittled everyone. And
Dog cussed everybody.
just basically just cussed out everyone, traded away the key players there, and tore down that franchise. And then he said that on the last day when he was having his exit interview and he was getting cut, like they were talking about the problems and stuff like that, and he essentially walked away fired, feeling bad for McDaniels. And he was like, "What are you gonna do?" And he was like, "I don't know, but I'm getting out of here." So that was obviously the old ownership, but still, is it fair or fade to call McDaniels from his first coaching era like 10 years ago now? Like, if you're McDaniels, is that fair or do you want his fade?
A lot of people want Josh McDaniels fade. Historically, we got to really line this up.
A lot of fantasy owners.
Like,
a lot of fantasy
Brandon Marshall
owners.
might want his fade. Brandon Lloyd might want his fade. All those running backs in Denver. Tim Tebow might want his fade.
Patriot linemen.
Tim Tebow sells his Heisman
Patriot
for
linemen
auction
and
every year
receivers.
for students. So, yeah, all those are fadeable offenses. Like, just for real? Like, what? Fade or what's the other one?
Fair or fade?
Yeah, none of that shit fair, bro.
Well, I guess
Violence. You just gotta choose violence on all of them.
it's football.
And some of them guys knew better.
Well, that pretty much does it for the rundown. I know we still got a guest calling in the next 15 minutes or so.
In the next 5.
Okay.
Should I just say his name? Or just wait till he calls in?
Well, I set the Google link for 9:15, so hopefully it works. Just go in there now. Then.
I was about to say, go on there, that Google link. We'll wait for him. But I guess I'll just... So we have high school reporter extraordinaire. Morissette.
Well, let's see.
Scorebook Live.
It's make sure you can connect first, because I don't know, man.
Yeah,
I've just learned from my prior mistakes. It had been down this path before, so
Is technology like abandoning you at the worst possible hour? Is that fair or fade?
Guess it's fair because I'll be exploiting technology a lot. Multitasking, texting and driving, different shit like that. So it's all kinetic karma. Like that alliteration, huh? I hope you wake the fuck up when Connor comes in right now.
I just can't believe you said that.
You better wake up when Connor comes in.
I feel concussed. Like, my head just hurts. But, like, that just got me mad. Like, and it's hot in here. So, like, me going into the mic on accident sounds like I'm going, but I'm not sore or tired.
Oh, yeah. Was Eli Manning clowning Russell Wilson for getting $250 million?
He said you should have gave that punter $234 million. Honestly, Russ,
was that fair or fade?
That was definitely fair. That's the only fair one.
That's
Eli and Payton were fair. Why didn't Brian Daboll or why didn't these motherfuckers call timeout during this game? I was so mad. I was like, bro, you got 3 timeouts. You can't take them into the second quarter or in the third quarter. Call 4 times.
Can't take them with you.
Can't take them with you. Like, just make them 4 rest out. Not what I say. Fucking 4.
What did you even say, sir?
I don't know. I was thinking about Future's catalog, and then I thought about that.
Oh, I need you to wake up right now
got my shit
because
mixed
Connor's about to come into the room.
First off,
all right, you ready? Got your intro juice ready?
yes, I have my intro ready, bro. Just hello.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. So we have on the line high school reporter extraordinaire, Mr. Scorebook Live himself.
Friend of the show.
Friend of the show. Haven't talked in a minute. It's been a while. COVID kicked everybody's butt, but then high school football came back, and now you're out here grinding as always, doing your thing. Everybody, welcome Connor Morissette back on the show.
Yes, sir. See if I can find.
Thank you. What an introduction. I appreciate it, you guys. Have you guys been?
Good, man. Striving and prospering, hanging in there as always.
Yep, coming up with new segments on the show. Figuring out how the Manning brothers just keep getting away with slandering everybody, and it's justified. The Monday Night Football game was horrible.
Yeah.
I think that's why I'm tired, because I sat through that game and watched it. I was trying.
Better than the Sunday night game, at least.
That's true. I literally when Jimmy stepped out of bounds, I was like, oh God.
Tanner Orlovsky was freed.
We are in Mercury retrograde. I'm literally like, okay. I got off work at 2:00 today. I've taken about 7 naps since then. I'm just like, nothing made me more tired than watching the Giants and Cowboys play football. Like, it was just the penalty. I was like, fam, I've seen high school football with cleaner clock management. And that's where you come in, Connor. First off, how have you been personally, professionally? How have you been? Everybody says,
Thank
how
you
it.
for asking.
Go for it. Go for it.
Go ahead. I've been great. Thank you for asking. So tonight, I know it's the football season, but the Rolling Hills Prep basketball coach Harvey Katani, he puts on an annual dinner for all the basketball coaches, and he invites some media people. And it's at a restaurant called the San Franciscan in Torrance, and it's this prime rib place. And so I'm coming back from that, and I just had one of the best pieces of prime rib of my life. So I'm doing amazing.
Oh, that sounds great.
I'll put that on the list.
And high school sports are great too. But yeah, I'm doing really well.
Fantastic. So I mean, I've been keeping up with a little bit, like the mega showdown that happened in the South Bay, kind of Inglewood versus Lawndale. Inglewood came away with the win, 21-0. Their QB, they had a QB who was a freshman phenom, Seth Shigg. He ended up transferring to Chaminade. He's been balling out there. It's I don't know. I feel like the transfer situation has kind of calmed down since COVID has happened. What have you seen on that regard as far as kids transferring? Obviously Bosco's out here running the world.
I mean, yes and no. You bring up Bosco, that they've certainly taken some impact, big time transfers, and that has a lot to do with their quarterback Pierce Clarkson being committed to Louisville, and then a couple other kids from Southern California are also committed to Louisville, and so they transferred to play with Pierce. So that's DeAndre Moore from Los Alamitos, who is a phenomenal receiver, and then Aaron Williams from Corona Centennial transferred to Bosco to play with Pierce, and all three of those guys are Louisville guys. So it's a little crazy. Modern day hasn't really, I think they've gotten a little better with it since the days when Sean Dollars transferred from Rancho Cucamonga, played at Modern Day, and then transferred back and graduated at Rancho Cucamonga. So I think that kind of made Modern Day look bad, and they changed their policies a little bit with transfers, but they still take them too, of course. Nate Frazier was at St. Pius, and now he's a good running back for Modern Day junior. But they're pretty firm about not taking senior transfers, so they have sort of stopped doing that, but Bosco's continued to do it. But Kenneth, I mean, it's calmed down a little bit. It was really crazy that Bryce and DJ year. It seemed like everyone was transferring all over the place, and that was crazy. And then COVID hits. Of course, people move around for different reasons. But I think this year there's still transfer stories every season. I mean, we all saw what happened at Los Al with T.A. Cunningham, the kid who transferred from Georgia, and now NIL is playing into kids transferring a little bit. But I think your overall point is right, that it's calmed down a little bit, but it's California high school football. It's never going to go away for good, and we're always going to see crazy transfers every year. So this year's been no different with that, but I think it's been a little bit better than it was before the pandemic, especially with the quarterbacks. We used to see crazy quarterback movement, and we still do it from time to time. But the top guys, Malachi Nelson, Los Al, 4 years. Pierce Clarkson, Los Al, St. John Bosco, all 4 years. Elijah Brown at Modern Day, he isn't a transfer. So the QBs have stuck at their schools, which has been pretty cool to see.
Yeah, there's even a QB. I think he's committed to Tennessee. Has a really long last name. He plays at Warren High School. I want to say that's Long Beach Warren, right?
Yeah. He probably isn't a good example because although he never played at Long Beach Poly, freshman year Long Beach Poly, sophomore, junior year Warren, senior year transferred to Long Beach Poly. For whatever reason, didn't really work out. That was in the spring, and then in the summer transferred back to Warren. So he's bounced around, but at least the last 3 years, every varsity snap he's taken has been at the same school. So probably not the best example, but yeah, Nico Iamalieva committed to Tennessee. He played the transfer game a little bit, but never took a varsity snap at a school other than Warren.
Boom. Yeah, because Long Beach Poly, they've kind of had a resurgence after they beat Sarah, a couple other schools. And what have you noticed from because I remember when Corey Foreman, people probably don't remember, but it was big when he decommitted from Clemson because, one of the rules for Clemson is once you commit, you're done seeing other visits. And this, I think, was around COVID. He wanted to, I guess he kind of pretty much wanted to stay at home. Now he's at USC. A lot of guys were kind of reluctant to leave the state during that COVID era. With the news that USC's pretty much leaving the Pac-12, like, have you noticed that, like, recruits are more active to kind of jump on those out-of-state offers?
Well, I think Lincoln Riley's doing a really good job of keeping people from California in California. I know that Corey Foreman was a little bit before that, but I think the Lincoln Riley factor plays a big part of that. But, of course, Alabama, we see them recruit California well with Bryce Young. I think that even though Lincoln Riley's here at USC, those out-of-state teams at the very top have still done a nice job of recruiting California, and they've sort of broken down those walls. So I think that even though Lincoln Riley is here, we still will see kids go out of state. I think Elijah Brown right now, USC's interested in him, but it looks like Alabama or another big-time school in the South will have a really good chance with him. So it's not totally the way it was when Pete Carroll was here, and if you were a good player, you weren't leaving this neck of the woods. But I think Lincoln Riley will really help with that. And let's say if USC ends up winning a national title at some point really soon, maybe you could get back to that Pete Carroll level where no one was leaving. Do I anticipate that happening very soon? No, but I think that's something to look for in the future. Clay Helton did it like when he was here, and even a few years before him, it sort of started going the other way where other teams from all over the country could just poach these California kids. And that's why we saw Bryce go to Alabama, DJ go to Clemson. I think that'll start to come back a little bit where the best kids will, for the most part, stay in California, but that's going to take a long time for Lincoln to build up that wall and do a good job of getting it back to where it was when USC didn't lose anyone.
Mm-hmm. And with that, how have like the JUCOs kind of recovered, and how have kids who were fringe or borderline, how have they kind of recovered since COVID from your observations and travels?
Yeah, I think that the JUCO scene, it's what's happened. The transfer portal makes junior college football stronger because these kids can, if you're not playing at a really high Power 5, you can go to a Group of 5 school and take a spot from a kid who would go in high school. Or would go straight from high school, excuse me. And then we also saw the COVID year really hurt a lot of these kids, which strengthens junior college because that gave everyone a free year of eligibility. So if you have a free year of eligibility, you're probably going to use it unless you're going to the NFL draft or you're just done with football. So I'd say most people are using that year of eligibility. And then that has a trickle-down effect where a really good high school player wouldn't get a spot on a college team because an older player who's already been in college is getting another year of eligibility. So I think junior college football is thriving in California because a lot of these kids, they used to just go right from high school to college football, big-time college football even. Those spots are just drying up. And so a kid like Cole Bullock at Sierra Canyon comes to mind. He really good linebacker, guy you'd think would go play D1. He's at College of the Canyons now, and he's hoping after this season to go somewhere else for 2 years. I think a lot of guys like him are out there, and that's going to be the case. Even though the COVID season was getting further and further away, that trickle-down effect of giving everyone an extra year. If you were a redshirt freshman, you don't have to use your redshirt year pretty much. You could use it the next year as well if you're still not ready to go because of that free year. So that's going to have a trickle-down effect for maybe even 4 or 5 years after it happens. So I think we're into like year 3 now, I believe. So we could still see the effects from that coming in a little bit. But to your point, Kenneth, yeah, junior college football is really strong. And it's kind of for a sad reason because kids aren't getting as many opportunities to play college football outside of that just because of COVID. But I think that eventually it'll change a little bit, but the transfer portal, like I said too, that doesn't help. If a kid's at a big school and then they don't play, they can go to a smaller school and then take another high school kid spot. So it's getting really tough. My advice to a fringe recruit, if you have a chance to commit, take it.
Most def. And, with the rivalries coming back, high schools, I mean, 'cause there were some schools that took whole years off. Like the whole fiasco at St. Bernard's, Manny Douglas leaves. The coach doesn't even have enough to field people. Like, teams took whole seasons off. How have you noticed, whether it be the South Bay, inner city, or like out in the valley, like how have you noticed those schools and the rivalries kind of pick back up?
Well, I mean, looking at the South Bay, I think Sarah is obviously the best team, and they've been really good, and they'll have those Mission League rivalries. But, I mean, I remember when Narbonne and Sarah was a big rivalry, and now Narbonne is a shell of what it used to be. So that's sort of over. Yeah, exactly. And now it's sort of Sarah, Long Beach, Pauley. I know Pauley is outside of the South Bay and down in Long Beach, but still that's sort of the rivalry. Lawndale, good program. I love what they do over there, but I think it's pretty clear that they're not really as strong as they were. Losing her, I think this year will go winless in the non-league, and then will do really well in their league, and they could make some noise. But it just looks a little bit different. I think that region is, I don't know if it was COVID or with Narbonne, it certainly wasn't COVID. It was a coach leaving and, scandal and stuff. So it's not, it's a multitude of reasons, but I don't know about you guys. It just seems to me that this is now my 6th year doing high school football. When I started, the South Bay was really, really powerful and talented. Even a school like Banning, I thought was better back when I started. But I mean, Narbonne, of course, was better. Those Sarah Gardena teams, a guy like Merlin Robertson, who's now at Arizona State, he was like the scariest linebacker that I remember covering in my time. It just seemed like that region was doing a lot better than it's doing now. So, I mean, the rivalries, of course, are still intense when those schools play, but just as a whole, talent-wise, it looks to me like that area is losing a little bit of steam talent-wise. I don't know what you guys have to say about that, if you have any thoughts, but that's what I've seen. Have you seen similar? I mean, you brought up Lawndale earlier, Ken. What are your thoughts on them? I love when they were so good. Look at what Jalen Daniels was doing at Kansas, and Jordan Wilmore's had a tough time at college, but he was a big-time prospect out of Lawndale. It just seems like they don't get as many guys as they used to.
Yeah, part of that is like the COVID years, like, kind of washed away a lot of cats who were going to get scholarships. I interviewed Derek Boyd when I was out at the Senior Bowl, and he went to Hawaii. They have that receiver who transferred from Venice, who's a really good basketball player too. I think he committed to Indiana. So they have some guys, and then Shig transferring to Chaminade really kind of shook things up. He's one of the fastest freshmen in the state. I think second or third fastest in the state. I was kind of shocked seeing him transfer to Chaminade, but I mean, you understand how the game is played. But like, also in the South Bay, everybody's fields are getting destroyed. Like they're getting dug up. Lawndale's field got dug up. Lusinger, they're in the middle of doing that. So everybody's playing at El Camino College. They're playing at El Camino College. They're playing at Hawthorne High. They're playing at Inglewood. They're playing local spots. But then you look at the schools, like let's say Palos Verdes. What's that school on the hill up down Artesia? They have like green colors. I forget their name. But like, there's a lot of schools like that, like the North Torrances. And yeah, Narbonne definitely has been taking a hit. But a lot of those schools, I feel like they're just trying to get community support again. And it's kind of weird seeing it because, the kids are still there, the parents are still there, but it just feels like the media attention on them isn't as bright as it used to be because the consistency of D1 talent is like it's starting to rapidly increase in the city section, southern section, but the southern section where the schools are like really good and like haven't really like COVID like hurt them, but it didn't hinder them. And some programs are like finally catching their stride 3-4 years removed from it. But, Pete, what do you think?
I'm curious, Connor, you mentioned covering this for 6 years, and we've talked a lot about all the different things that have changed over the course of that time. COVID, transfer portal, all these different cultural things. So, when you're out and about, do you feel like coaching is changing? Do you feel like coaching is catching up? Are these old school coaches adapting to all these different things that are happening? Or is it still, a lot of my way or the highway, the old school kind of thing that we were all around?
Question. I think at the top, a lot of the old school coaches are adjusting because you have to play the transfer game at the top, even to compete at a Division II. You really have to play the transfer game. And so we see at Bishop Amat, Steve Haggerty, been there forever. After Matt Villasenor leaves Sierra Vista, he's a free agent. He has tremendous relationships with some of the best high school players and youth players across Southern California. What does Steve Haggerty do? He brings Matt on his staff. Bishop Amat, they not only take in a few impact transfers, but they now have this pipeline of really talented youth players go to their school. And we all know the history of the Mater Dei and the Bosco, their youth teams just kind of funneling into those schools. That's how you have to do it to compete at that high level. So some coaches, they would say, we don't do the transfer game, that we're never going to do it. But just the way it is now, you kind of have to play the transfer game, and you have to really set up a pipeline where your school is attractive to the best youth players and their families. So I think Bishop Amat's a really good example of that. They, for the longest time, they really didn't play the transfer game, and they did things a little bit differently. Could that get them a Mission League title? Absolutely. But then when they would go into the playoffs, they'd have a tough time. That was back, though, more when D1 was 16 teams. So Bishop Amat would do okay, but then they'd go up against a really, really talented team. I remember Mission Viejo, the first year with Chad Johnson, they had Joey Yellen, who was at Pitt, and then started, I think, at Arizona State, and then went to Pitt, and then now is at Hawaii. And they, for whatever reason, had to forfeit some non-league games, which affected their standing. But they were one of the best teams in California. And Bishop Amat, of course, got the bad end of that. So Mission Viejo forfeits these games. Their rating goes down, that their seeding, whatever, was before Cal Preps. And so Bishop Amat has to play Mission Viejo in the first round of the playoffs, and Mission Viejo just rolled them. It wasn't a good matchup. I think now Bishop Amat is closer to a Mission Viejo with what they're doing. So that's one example. I'm trying to think of some other old school coaches who have had to change their ways a little bit. The one that jumps out immediately, though, is Bishop Amat. I mean, Sierra Canyon, the guy's not old school by any means. John Ellinghaus, he's been there for so long, but they play the transfer game. They're having a down year this year, but they won D2 the year before COVID hit. To compete at that level, you got to do it. I mean, look at the D1 teams who it's going to be. So we all know about Mater Dei. We all know about Bosco. Corona Centennial, of course, they're going to take transfers. And they have a very unique way of doing things under Matt Logan. It's not the same as a private school, but they're playing the game too. Los Alamitos, they get this kid from Georgia. Mission Viejo takes some transfers as well. They do it to a little bit lesser extent. They do a great job of getting youth players. But I think to answer your question overall, the coaches who are saying we're not going to take transfers, it's going to be the same as it's always been. Those coaches are falling behind. So that's something that I've seen change for sure in the 6 years.
And just to bring everything full circle, like for you, now you're entering your 6th year. It's the 2nd year post-COVID. Things are getting a little bit more normal. Like, how are you getting better, this next year? Like, what sort of things are you approaching differently now in year 6 than, year 1?
Having the relationships is so helpful. Instead of having to go to a game and introduce myself to a coach and say, hey, we're here with SB Live. 6 years in, SB Live is still new, but at least now, if they don't know SB Live, they probably know me, and there's a good chance they'll know me and SB Live. So it's like, okay, this guy's been here for a few years. I just have more credibility, which is really helpful. The first year, I was exclusively doing city section, so I built up credibility pretty quickly doing city section. But then when you go to Southern section stuff, it's like, okay, who the hell is this guy? And so that takes a little bit of time. So that's been awesome. But in terms of what I'm doing differently, I think at SB Live, what we try to do is, instead of writing just a full game story, we try to do like takeaways from the games, which incorporates what happened in the game, of course, because you got to write about what happened, but it's a little bit different than like in the first quarter this happened, second quarter this happened.
It's more of the big picture.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So that's something that's different. But it's tough that you're never gonna get a ton of clicks on a game story just because, unless it's a championship game or a really big recruit does something amazing, the shelf life on a game story is very short. So we do these changes and we show our face at these games, and I love covering games. That's my favorite thing. Mm-hmm. But in terms of clicks and understanding what drives traffic to a high scale, I think that's something that's changed with my job too now, where breaking news is the first and foremost biggest thing that drives traffic. If you can break a story and it has high interest, that's going to get people really excited. That's going to spread like wildfire. And we saw that when that youth sports coach in Orange County, Coach Frog, was first under investigation and then was arrested for sexual assault of a minor. We were able to break that story, get that in writing, and that was our most traffic post, I think, of the calendar year. So breaking news is the biggest. And then stuff that will keep people coming back, like a list post. Here are the best 20 quarterbacks in California. You publish it in October. Months later, someone will Google top 20 quarterbacks in California, and they'll click on your link. So just how I've done my job has changed a little bit too, which has been really interesting. And it's been fascinating to be at SB Live for this long, learn from my superiors and get a better understanding of how to do the job better. It's been a big help working with some of my superiors, and it's been a lot of fun too. I definitely have a better understanding of the scene and a better understanding of what drives traffic, which at the end of the day is what keeps everyone employed.
Yeah, I love that too, because, it's really been a joy watching your growth and watching you put in all that work and lay in all that groundwork, like, authentically. And
Thank you.
Go ahead, Kenny.
Hey, yeah, you talk about breaking news and stuff that sticks. And I remember that last thing. I remember the modern day story where like that freshman got beat up, and they were saying, they were saying people were covering it up. George died. She's got involved somehow. Like, how did you approach that story? Like when it came out, and how like pretty much the school just closed ranks and stopped talking to everybody. Like from the outside, seeing that, like how was it, reporting on that? How tough was that, and how did you ultimately handle it?
Great question. So that was the OC Register that broke it. So since it wasn't us, and that was like a month-long investigation, and they really did a great job. So because that wasn't us, we didn't really write about it because that was their story. And then, of course, Modern Day was never going to talk about it. So even with our sources, like the one great thing about the OC Register is they are really plugged in with the Orange County Court. And so anything that happens down there, they're all over it because they have not just sports reporters really involved with it, but they cover those courts every day. So they were able to get the inside scoop of that. And so, of course, we wrote about it, and everything we wrote about, we attributed to the OC Register because it was an ongoing legal battle, and it still is. And the investigation that Modern Day launched into its athletic department still hasn't finished up, and those findings still haven't been released. But because that was all ongoing and we didn't break the story, we didn't really write about it very much, other than like when I wrote a story previewing the Modern Day game against Servite in the championship, we just said, here's 5 storylines. The first one was that, but we didn't do any original reporting. Of course, I would talk to people on the ground, but no one would really say anything. So for that, we would just attribute the OC Register, reference their story, reference their story, reference their story. But how that changed my workflow was Modern Day, after games, it was very difficult to talk to coaches and players. They were very strict. The media access was really challenged to a point where I'd never really seen it. So after the Servite game, Bruce Rollinson, the head coach, they let him talk, and he said some things that probably didn't make them really look good, the school, just because they were under the public eye so much. Like I asked him, it's been a whirlwind week for you. How are you feeling right now? Hoping to get an answer about, of course, winning the championship, but also about what had happened with that report from the OC Register. And Bruce Rollinson said, "Are you kidding me? I just won a championship. I'm on cloud nine." He said something like that. I'm feeling amazing. And so that quote went everywhere. And then he, of course, didn't really look very good because that news was so fresh in people's mind about the hazing incident. So then after that happened, the next week in the state championship game, they were super strict. He didn't talk at all, and it was really tough to get a player to talk. We had to communicate with their administration, and there were 3 reporters, me, Sondheimer from the LA Times, and Mark Tennis from Cal High Sports. And they said, go stand over there. We'll bring you a player. And usually after a game, you can just talk to anyone, and it goes really fast. But they were all instructed not to talk. So at first, no one talked. And then eventually they brought CJ Williams over to us, and he answered some questions. So that changed my job just because it got really, really tough to deal with the school from a media perspective because they didn't want anyone to put their foot in their mouth after Rollinson. I don't want to say put his foot in his mouth, but just spoke in a manner that really didn't paint the school in the best light after that investigation was happening with the whole hazing thing. So that was interesting, and it was tough. But to answer your initial question, Kenneth, we really didn't do much with that story because that was a whole deal with the OC Register, and that was something we weren't really involved in reporting on at all. So we just attributed what they said in our stories. And then, of course, we talked after games and tried to get as much info as we could. But the OC Register really – that story made Modern Day change their policies, and then we just reacted to change their policies and went on with our job. It didn't change my job too much. It just changed how Modern Day operated, which then, of course, would change what I did. But we didn't really have any cause or effect in that. That was all the OC Register.
Thanks for that. Thanks for that clarification, Connor. Because, like, from an editorial aspect, like, people really don't understand, like, how much that affects, like, at a high school level, when you're covering things, something as simple as just access to a player, like that could like kill anything, a quote for your story, like that could just dead it right there. People don't realize how hard that is, and the editorial discussions that go into effect before you even decide to write about it. So thank you for sharing that process so people actually understand like what high school journalism and reporters actually have to deal with and go through when stories like this happen.
Yeah, no problem. And I tried to write a column because I always want to write about the biggest issue going on. And Modern Day killed Survey in the championship game. There wasn't really much to write about X's and O's. I wanted to write about that story. My boss was like 2 a.m. He said, we can't run this. You can't write a column getting ahead of this story right now because all the facts aren't out there. Push the brakes on this. What you did was wrong. And I thank my boss for that because he's right. If we had run this big column, it wasn't our place to do that. And so in the heat of the moment, the little reporter nerd in me, I was like, okay, I want to write something that has to do with this big breaking story. The football game wasn't that great. Let's write about what's on everyone's mind. And then luckily my editor was like, what are you doing? You got to write about the game. Well, we are in no position to write about this at this current time. So I always thought that was a little bit of an interesting piece of this whole thing because you want to, at least for me, it was a valuable lesson I learned. You want to write about what's on everyone's mind and the biggest story of the day. But if you're not positioned to do so, you really can't. And I that was a valuable lesson I learned.
I will say I would have read the fuck out of that column, though, Connor.
I would have shared it, quote tweeted
it. But all right, man. Why don't you let the people know what you got coming up, all your social medias, where they can find you, and all that good stuff.
Sure. And Pete, just to let you know, I got a young man named Gabriel Duarte from CSUN. He's been shadowing me the last couple of football games I've been to.
Awesome.
He's going to be with me tomorrow night at C. Canyon. They're hosting Bishop Amat, so I'm going to be at that game with my guy Gabe. I'm looking forward to covering that. He's really helpful, and he just wants to learn, so it's been awesome dealing with him. But I'm at C_Morissette on Twitter, and then you can find all my work, scorebooklive.com/California.
Love that. Thank you so much, Connor. Giving it back to the future generations.
Oh, no, of course. Hey, if Gabe wasn't good, I wouldn't keep having him back. He's doing a great job, so my pleasure.
Shout out to those Matadors.
All right, Connor.
Oh, yeah.
Well, thank you for hanging out with us a little bit extra. Hope you enjoy the rest of your night and that lingering prime rib taste.
Yeah, I smell like horseradish. I got to go wash my hands. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
I'm gonna go to that restaurant now. Sounds delicious.
You gotta. San Franciscan.
San Franciscan. Got you. Have a great night. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Peace.
Well, that was Connor Morissette.
Might go there next weekend.
The great.
Indeed.
I don't know why our applause sounds like an ocean wave, but
Because
I digress.
that interview, that conversation deserved the ocean of applause. Because everybody wants, right? How about, let me put it like this. Everybody wants somebody to write about their kid. They want them to be immortalized somehow through video, through text, through written word. But you don't know what the people who do that go through. And a lot of times it's thankless. And you'll may carry that story that somebody wrote about you for the rest of your life. That other person has like 1,000 other stories they have to get to. And as a writer, as a journalist, you never get to write all the stories you want to write. And that was a big deal. That's why I brought up the modern day situation, because I remember all the journalists were quiet around this time. Like, modern day beat the dog shit out of Servite. Like, it was bad. It was worse than like when they called the Narbonne game, because they knew Narbonne was going to dog walk that team. Once they found out they weren't going to be able to go to the playoffs, so they just called the game off. But yeah, I think like more people, when you want to talk about community and you want to get involved in the community, well, this is a community conversation that needed to be had. This is something that you need to understand if you want to know why the schools need more money, or how come, the coaches leave, or coaches get burnt out, or players leave, or straight up parents pull their kids out of a school they really want to go to, and then you never hear from them again. Like, you need to understand these stories. You need to know what the people who are actually tracking this information down, like the editorial decisions they make, and how it gets to that point. Sometimes you gotta know how your meal's made.
What else do we need to know? Do you need to tell us that we need to know it any more times?
Nah, I just felt like really emphasizing that point.
Yeah, no,
people
I got
constantly
it.
talking.
I needed to know. Thank you. I understand.
Because we're in media.
No,
so,
I got
we
it.
Get it.
I get it. I
Shut
get
up.
what you're saying.
Don't do me like last week. It's not like last week, you asshole. Making a genuine point right now.
No, I know it's a good point. It's just a long one, but it's a good one.
Pause. First off.
All right, man.
Yeah.
So with that, let's go ahead and jump forward to the rants. So now you can go ahead and rant and tell me what the fuck I need to know.
With your crispy ass mic. How dare you? How dare you cut me off when I was on a good run? But nah, man, like, just had some interesting talk.
you to know that.
I had some interesting talks at work. I've seen some interesting things in media this week. Made me just go,
People need to know that.
like the Kanye situation. Like the fact that I don't know what kind of slave deals he was signing, but every time you turn around, he getting fucked. He can't mention any variation of Yeezys. He can't do any of that stuff. I think about the fact that we're going to hit our 300th episode in 2 weeks, and that honestly, we're probably just going to go to a bar and get food and invite y'all to come out with us. Because if you really ain't been rocking with us or sharing our shit or fucking with us pre-episode 298, and you've known about us since, let's say, I don't know, when we were in Pete's musty-ass apartment.
The first time.
The first musty-ass apartment.
The first was
When he thought, hey, you know what? I should turn off all the air in here. I should just siphon off all forms of oxygen. I know my bed ain't made up, but fuck it, Kenny, sit over here after we do this quick recording, because it feels like we're in a hot fucking shoe locker. Like, we're gonna do this and then play some Madden, and then we're gonna like grow the show. Like, I feel like if you've been a part of Touchdowns and Tangents, man, for these past 6 years, and September 24th was our 6-year anniversary. We just hit that. That means a lot, man, because 6 years ago, we were all in totally different places in our lives. I was on the verge of some shit. A breakdown, you know, a lot of things. Trying to get a breakthrough, and I mean, shit. Shout out to the homie Mancini. He just got a job. Moving to Boston. Pretty much said, "Hey, so I'm gonna hit y'all up later. I'll catch y'all at the after party." He that dude. He left the party super early. Before anybody else to say, "Hey, give me the address to the kickback," and then never showed up to the kickback. And then next time we see him, it's in Boston, like 3 years from now. But nah, salute to the homie Mancini, starting off his career, doing something that he loves, chasing news, politics, you know, the shit that matters to him. And we love to see that. Shout out to everybody in the group chat. The lineage is strong.
We gotta add this new dude now. Connor's working with.
Yeah. And like now we have like a second generation of the lineage because, I mean, there's Izzy, Eric, my nephew, Serve. Like we literally have like we have a lifetime of memories with people, which is kind of crazy. You think about it over these past 6 years.
All right, man. We're not at 300 yet, so
we're not at 300 yet, but I'm just saying, like, don't expect some gaudy ass celebration because we've been doing this shit consistently through rain, sleet, snow, false positive COVID tests, tainted fruit platters, all types of shit. Words that I can no longer say on the show per our agreement through the group chat. But yeah, man. Love y'all. Stay safe, and for real, like, I really hope some of y'all who say you care about, like, community and you care about the kids and shit, like, sports isn't just some dumb jock thing. Like, it affects your politics, it affects economics, and you need to be paying attention because sports ain't just about your kids having fun. It's a business, and then it becomes a monopoly, and then it becomes your kids getting pimped out at the D1 level if you ain't careful. And some of y'all got this NIL money and don't realize you got to pay taxes on it. So, you know, look out for the next generation.
All right, yeah. So for me, bouncing back from COVID has been weird. It's kind of like right when you think everything's normal, you get like weird feelings, and it's like, I don't know what that is, but yeah, I'm not contagious, so hopefully it continues to progress and get better. Outside of that, man, I'll just say this, man. Don't be taking the iOS delete for granted, because you know you still got to know who you're texting. All right, because you know the right threads matter. All right, the right threads matter.
Some threads you don't want to get left on red.
But yeah, man. Outside of that, October is always crazy for me. A lot of birthdays. So shout out to my brother and sister celebrating their birthday this weekend. Alexis and Philip. Philip's turning 15. Alexis is turning 18. The effects down. And my stepmom, it's also her birthday. So shout out to her. So yeah, it's gonna be a busy weekend. It's crazy last week, trying to work and get over COVID and doing O&A adjacent, virtually, whatever. But time's evening out a little bit more this week, and, you know, just continuing to keep the foot on the gas, reevaluating some of our projects. Got some new interns hopefully we're going to be introducing to the show pretty soon. So, again, something to be excited about. But yeah, in regards to 300, like, for me, it's just a matter of just keeping it going. Like, we didn't come this far just to keep coming this far. So I look back even at 200 and I'm just like, dang, that was like 20 pounds ago, man. I got to get back down. But yeah, outside of that, man, I forgot. I had something way more insightful to say, and then your rant just kind of made me laugh, and I totally forgot. So
Clippers media day.
no, but NBA season is coming back, so that is pretty exciting. I'm excited to see John Wall. I did have some FOMO watching all the NBA media days and not being there.
That shit is for the birds and TikTok. NBA Twitter gonna be saying some disrespectful shit this year. I'm just bracing for it.
Yeah, that whole Boston Celtics, Malika Andrews shit is wild.
Hey, don't be saying
went
certain
down
names
a-
on this podcast.
I went down a whole wormhole with that this week.
I don't know why you did.
I don't know why I go into a lot of the wormholes that I go into.
Bro,
but-
journalism beef will get people killed. Like, you know that, right? Like, journalism beef is like three of the most dangerous beefs out here.
But all right, that's it for our show. Touchdowns and Tangents, Thursday nights at 8. Catch us on Twitter, Instagram, TDs_tangents.
I'll be at the USC Arizona State game this weekend.
Shout out to X Squad. Shout out to FPC Radio. Shout out to everyone who messes with us. Shout out to your favorite podcast app. Thanks again, Connor, for calling in. And peace.
Peace. Love you, Isaiah.